Right. So welcome again to our second forum for the Women in Local Leadership series here at the South Shore Chamber. Glad to have you all here. Today we are joined by Renee McInnes and Paula Harris. We're super excited to have both of them. Again, Renee is our current chamber chair and will be for next year as well. So we're super excited to have your leadership. And Paula Harris is a past chair. So really excited to have both of you here today. As a quick logistics, for those of you who would like to share your contact information, please use the chat function in sharing your name, organization, contact information, and I'm happy to send that around afterwards. So a quick logistics piece there. I'm going to go ahead and turn the floor over now to Paula Harris. We're again super excited to have you as a past chair and hear a little bit about Renee and kind of her leadership, and then we'll open it up for some question and answer, and happy to have you again all here today. All right, Paula, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Courtney. I'm so excited to be back with Chamber friends and faces I haven't seen in a long time. And I'm honored today to get to talk to Renee McInnes. I sit on a board for Renee at Norwell VNA, and we actually had a meeting yesterday, which is exciting. So Renee, I think as we talked, I'm going to let you do your own introduction of who you are and your background, and then we'll jump into some questions. So Renee?
Okay, great. Thanks, Paula, and thanks for agreeing to be my host here. Very excited. And as Paula said, she's on our fundraising board of trustees and has been very supportive to our organization. So a shout out to Paula, and helpful to me as guidance for being the chair of the South Shore Chamber. So my career, I'm a nurse, and started my career working at Tufts Medical Center in cardiac and ICU. Loved it, fabulous, fantastic. And then changed course a little, really, as I was raising my children, sort of switched my roles in my career kind of to meet the needs of the family and how I could juggle all of that. I won't date myself, but back then there weren't many fabulous daycares as there are now, so it was a little bit different. And so I went into some different areas of nursing, community, public health, got very, very interested in visiting nurse services, and sort of did some exploration and went to Norwell. Someone told me, actually, someone that I worked with in another venue said, you should go to Norwell VNA. They're great. They're really entrepreneurial. Their leadership is great. It's a really great place to work. So went to interview there. They were in the town center of Norwell at the time, in the basement of the Cushing Center. My office actually became one of the bank vaults was my office back then. So went to work there, absolutely loved community nursing. Worked with the CEO there very closely. We were a small group, so we really got a lot of support, education, mentoring. She became a nurse practitioner, so we had loved to educate us. So I feel like I got such a great experience in terms of my ability to be a really independent, autonomous nurse when you're in the home working with patients. You can't turn to your colleague and say, hey, what do you think? Yeah, you can call your supervisor on the phone or a colleague, but when you're in front of a patient caring for them, the most important thing, obviously, is that you're competent in your skills and to remain calm and hopefully gain the trust of the patient. So that was a learning curve in home care and healthcare, because in the hospital, you do have the support of your colleagues, and there's many different disciplines there to help and support you, and you can always turn to somebody and ask. So I felt like that really sharpens your skills, I'll tell you that, and I loved it. I slowly moved into, I always seem to move, I explore the reason why, but I always seem to move into management positions, and I think part of that is I definitely am a doer. I'll get it done and I'll make sure it's done right. I'll study what I need to study to understand it and know that I'm doing the right thing. So I moved into management within that organization, clinical management, education, then moved into marketing and business development and the admissions, running the admissions department as well, which was a great learning for me in terms of, being out in the business community, learning about marketing and what that means, but also using my clinical skills, working with the physicians, working with the case managers at the hospital, and so on. Then I started their private duty company there called VNA Works, and that was another learning in terms of a startup and working closely with the team there to really understand the financial position and so on. So I feel like all the positions I had along the way, I've learned something different about not only the clinical side of healthcare, but the business. So financials and business, which was great, tying the dots together. Then I had a period of time when I was very interested in health prevention, and I became a health coach, got a degree in integrative nutrition, did some health coaching, went back to work at Tufts Medical Center as a case manager for 4.5 years because I felt like I needed to figure out what was going on the other side of the world there. And then came back to Noble VNA and Hospice almost 5 years ago. The CEO was getting ready to retire, and I went back for a year working with her in the business development role again. And then they were doing a search for a CEO. And so I'll tell a funny story about that. They were doing a search for a CEO, and I was thinking, I wonder if I could do that job. And I had worked so closely with Meg Doherty, the previous CEO, in all aspects of the business, and went to finance meetings and board meetings. I asked her, could I go to the finance meeting and board meetings that year that I was working with her? And she said, absolutely. So I did. Wasn't going to apply, and then sort of saw who was applying and kind of saw the skill set. And I'm like, you know what? I can do that. A little nervous, trust me, asking my colleagues, anyone I knew, do you think I can do it? What do you think? And so asking the previous CEO, can I do it? And she said, absolutely, I'll help you, work with you. And so I applied and initially did not get the job because they wanted someone with an MBA. And I thought, wow, I had taken classes at Suffolk, but hadn't finished my MBA, which I'm finishing now. That's another story. But anyway, so, I thought about it and I went back and I said, you know what? I'm going to bring all the data. I'm going to bring all the information I can to show this executive committee that I know what I'm doing. I can do the job. So I did. I collected data, had graphs and charts, and this is what I've done. This is what I can do. I've been working closely with the person right now that you're entrusting to the organization, following the same philosophy and values and mission of the organization. And so they interviewed me again, gave me an opportunity, and then I think met with some of the senior leaders, and they gave me the opportunity. So it was great. A big learning, and yes, a lot of fear and anxiety.
I'm sure. So Renee, let's fast forward. You've got the job. It's now March of 2020. You just described all the different aspects of the organization that you've touched over the years. The organization is celebrating its 100th year this year. And the whole world is faced with a global pandemic. And you have seen revenue now drop 40%. Mm-hmm. Walk us through how your leadership skills helped now guide you these past 6 months.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. So first of all, I'm a calm leader. I have to be calm, because if I'm not calm, I need calm people around me as well, but I can calm people. So calming is important to me, to think logically and calm. I think some of those skills I gained working in intensive care when you're part of an incident command team, truly, and you have to go into that incident command mode. So I'll be honest, I was in Florida at a wedding, my niece's wedding in March 13th. And some of the leaders at my organization called me and said, you know, things are starting to heat up here in Massachusetts. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? Well, I think they're going to shut down. And I said, well, wait a minute, so hadn't watched the news, didn't know what was going on when I was in Florida. So came back and immediately met with the leadership team, incident command. We have emergency preparedness, obviously. As a healthcare organization, part of your regulatory standards is you have to have an emergency preparedness plan. We had used it for other situations, of course, never a pandemic. We had policies and procedures on pandemics, but never had to activate those, right? So we went right into incident command following the guidelines of the CDC and the Department of Public Health, which changed every single day. So when I got together with the team, we had daily meetings, we had daily incident command meetings, and then we would, discuss what we were going to get out to the masses of our employees. So yes, revenue dropped 40%. What I said to them is right away, I said, okay, we're going to need money, we're going to need PPE, and we're going to need support for these staff members because we don't want to furlough them. They're going to be nervous about their jobs. They're going to be anxious about what's going to happen. They're anxious about their life, their children, the world. So we have to remain calm. So we really followed the guidelines from the governor and the CDC and Department of Public Health. Regardless of what you think yourself, you have to follow what the guidelines are to keep your patients, your staff, safe and for business continuity. So that was every day. I said, okay, we got to keep patients safe, staff safe, but we got to continue with the business. And how's that going to work? So we right away applied for the PPP loan. We did get some of the health stimulus money. That was something none of us knew we were getting. And my controller called and said, like, this check just showed up in our account. I don't know what it is. And I'm like, what? So, we didn't get forewarning that these funds were going to come. So that was great.
That's a good problem.
That was a good problem. So we went right into communicating with our staff, keeping everyone calm, and securing a lot of PPE. So what happened is we would work with the state, FEMA, MEMA, everybody. I had a whole team of approving PPE. Is it the right PPE? Because we were getting things from everywhere, and some of it wasn't really safe for a medical community. Okay for masks for other people, but not when we're seeing patients. So it was challenging, but I have to say, in healthcare, we usually do pretty well in a crisis. And I'll talk about the recovery phase, which isn't as easy. But the crisis, we can band together. We've got our policies and procedures. We know what to do. We jump in. Very different with a pandemic, as you said, Paula, because the guidance coming from the epidemiologists would change. We would call the state epidemiology line, oh God, almost every day to get guidance from them. And they were fabulous and supportive. But their guidance would change. And even when we were returning to work, I called them for guidance on safety in the workplace in terms of our office. So definitely a challenge, but we have done really well. We didn't have to furlough our employees, and they were so grateful for that, really.
I'm sure. So one of the things I know people are probably curious about is you started your career as a nurse, and how do you take those skills? One of them you just said was being that cardiac nurse and being calm. What other skills from your initial nursing have helped guide you as a CEO and a leader?
Right. I think really when you look at nursing, in my career anyways, and I won't speak for everybody, but when I was first a nurse, I had one of my mentors, I've had several, but one was the nurse supervisor I had, my first job. she was incredible in terms of educating, teaching, mentoring, and coaching me. One of the things she taught me was, and this was, don't forget, back in the day when there was a tolerance of hierarchy. So for instance, you're a nurse, the doctors, there was a little bit of a tolerance of that hierarchy then. Even though we were a team, it was a different relationship. She said, when you're working at night and you're the supervisor and you call the intern and wake them up, they will yell at you. And so they will not be happy with you. But your first commitment is to the patient, the safety of the patient. So she guided me in understanding how to work with people, how to work with different personalities, how to work with different teams, how to, I think I naturally have some emotional intelligence. I will say, I think that's part of what you need to have to be a leader. I don't take things personally. I think that's another important thing you have to have as a leader. I look at things very objectively. I do my homework and I say, okay, there's 3 sides to every story. Let's look at this and figure it out. She actually supported me in that as well, because, you're working with all different levels of workers, and how do you respect and value them, but get the team to work together. And so I learned a lot from her, I'll have to say. Learned a lot from the physicians as well that I worked with. And then I think I come from a very entrepreneurial family. I'm the only one, I'm one of 5 girls, the only one that went into health and medicine. They're in banking, accounting, legal, and higher ed. So very entrepreneurial family. My dad was very much committed to education and really didn't want me to be a nurse. He wanted me do something in business, but look, so I end up here. But I think I had sort of that. He was an entrepreneur himself. I think I had sort of that understanding of what that meant. And then I also think the calming ability is very, very important. But I will say taking things personally is something that I don't take things personally has really helped me throughout the year.
Yeah. Now, you just talked about advice that you got from a mentor. Tell us a little bit about how you mentor your staff and maybe other people in your life. Yeah,
that's a really good question, Paula, because that's something that I don't know about any of you on the call that are leaders, but you feel like you never quite do enough in that area, or it's one of the most challenging things to do, because you're working, especially in my position, I'm a working CEO, if that makes sense to you. So I'm sometimes in the weeds because I have to be. We don't have a lot of layers in my organization, not a large health system. So that we're very compressed. And so you really have to carve out the time to pay attention to that piece of your role, because it takes a lot of time and energy to mentor and coach people. It takes emotional energy, and you want to prepare, and you have to be prepared to have those difficult conversations and offer constructive feedback. And be direct but kind.
Yes.
So I think that that's something that I work really hard at, but that I would like to perfect. Having more direct, honest conversations. I'm very approachable. I have an open door policy. Very team oriented. I'm not a big hierarchical person, but there is a point where you are the CEO or you are the leader. So you do need to sometimes make those hard, tough, final decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how do you feel when you have to do that?
It's not my natural style, but I feel like it's what the board has hired me to do. It's my responsibility. It's what I need to do as the CEO. I have to look at all my constituents, right? So my staff, the external environment, the donors, the board of directors. And that was something, quite honestly, Paula, I think I've talked to you about before, but I had never reported to a board of directors. So I reported to the CEO, but not the board of directors. Really didn't fully appreciate how much time and work that is, in a good way, but that, when I succeeded the previous CEO, that's so much time and energy as well. But
Yeah.
understanding what the board expects from you, what your role is, what their role is. So that was a learning for me.
And that's a very unique learning for a leader. Not everybody reports as a CEO to a board of directors.
Right.
So, tell us a little bit about how you've balanced that and what skills you need that are different from managing the day-to-day. How do you manage the board as well?
Right. So, there's a balancing act between, you don't want your board in operations, but you want to keep them educated and informed, and part of the process. And they are the fiduciary. They're volunteer boards. It's a nonprofit, independent. So these are volunteer board members who are working and busy. You want to respect their time. You want to respect their expertise. And so there was a challenge initially because I inherited a board. And so looking at my board and really crafting a new board, we have really pretty much a new board. Some of the previous board members who are fantastic did agree to stay for some historical support. So looking at some diversity within it, we did not have a lot of diversity on our board. Not many women. The skill sets, looking at the skill sets you needed, where were their gaps? And then understanding, I have to say there was several board members who really took me under their wing. And, one, I think Deirdre Prescott had to hop off the call, but one was Deirdre Prescott, and another was a gentleman who was on, he's not on the call, so I don't want to, he was on the board for a while and then has stayed on and met with me. I met with each one of them independently to get to know them, for them to get to know me, ask them the communication style they like, am I giving them enough information? Is it too much? So on and so forth. He was so wonderful. He does have frank conversations with kindness, but he was honest and kind with me. And he said, here's what we expect from you. And this is what I want you to do. So one of the things I learned is that when I went to the board, because I was new to that role, and they knew that I had not previously been a CEO, right? So I was still a little bit of testing there. So was new to the role. And even though I knew the financials inside out and upside down, because I had studied them over and over and over every time, and worked with the controller to understand the nuances for our business, he said, you need to present the financials and you need to connect the dots and tell the story, because they need to feel trust. They need to trust that you really know and understand this and how it affects operations. Great recommendation. Don't have the controller speak. You do it. So that's what I did. And it was from there, it just snowballed into me gaining more confidence in understanding the content and how to present what was enough and what was too much. And I think we've got it now. It's going on almost year 5. I think we're there.
That's good. And I want to remind folks, you're running an organization, a $20 million organization. We often discount the role of nonprofits to the economy on the South Shore, and we think they're small. I would challenge, on this call, how many people have a business bigger than that? Chris Odleson probably does, but I didn't go through everything or everyone here, but that's a big role. And you're playing the face to the board, to the staff, but you've got to be the face to the families, the patients, the politicians. I mean, you're affected in so many ways to your other competitors who are probably in some ways competitors, in other ways you cooperate, because you've got to play well with health systems and things like that. Talk about what it's like to have that many roles.
Yeah. So, I feel like it's in terms of, it can be challenging in terms of your time, but
Yep.
I feel like it's really been important to help me within my organization. I am the face of the organization in many areas. So I'm on, obviously, the chamber board. We can talk a little bit about that in a minute. I'm on the board of the Home Care Alliance, which is our advocacy legislative board for home care and hospice. I'm on a committee for the National Association of Home Care, which is an advocacy board legislating in Washington to support home care and hospice. And also meeting with the donors to, they want to know that how is this person running the business? Is she responsible? Is she, how is the funding going to be used? And then patients and families as well. Patients and families is my natural, so that's my natural, attraction, obviously, and that is my comfort zone. So that is such a joy when I really get to interact with patients and families, and I still do, and it's great. So people will call me for a counsel or what have you. So, but I think the other areas that I've been exposed to through this position have really sharpened my skills. So I'm learning how to, I've met so many leaders, so many, at so many different levels, working with, talking with, meeting with CEOs that are running billion-dollar companies to, other CEOs who are running small nonprofits. So I think it's been amazing learning and understanding about the CEO of a for-profit versus a nonprofit.
Yeah.
It's been a amazing ride, really. I've just learned so much in such a small amount of time. And I think that's why I feel the chamber was very, very important in my growth. And I was saying this on the breakout session when Peter asked me a question, is that the VP of advancement for us, Michael Rogers, when I first took the job, we did not know each other. And he was like, man, I don't know, hopefully she'll work out. So anyway, he said to me, he was really probably the strategic person on the team at the time. And he said, hey, you got to join the chamber. I'm like, okay, why? He's like, well, this is what you need to do. You need to get on the chamber. You need to join the chamber. Then you need to get on the board of the chamber. You're going to meet these other leaders within the South Shore community. You're also going to expose the agency, but you're going to learn so much. So I jumped in and a little intimidated, I'll be honest with you, not knowing what that was all going to mean.
That Michael Rogers, yeah. He called me and said, I need you to help me get Renee introduced to people on the South Shore. So before we pivot to the chamber, I just want to say I had an unexpected prospect call yesterday. And it was right after we actually had a board meeting for the trustees of NVNA. And she actually had 2 family members pass away at the hospice home this year. And she just said the care was so wonderful, and being able to be with loved ones during COVID was a big deal. So kudos to you guys figuring that out, being able to let loved ones be together. But I do, since we both share the distinction of being Peter Foreman's boss,
if that's possible.
Well, we both know that that's not possible. So I wanted to talk about, how do you be a leader in a volunteer organization where you don't have authority, but you need to lead via influence? Talk a little bit about your, gaining those skills. How different is that from your day-to-day job?
Right. Well, you know what? I really think, sitting back and learning from my first, few years at the chamber and watching, I'll be honest with you, watching how the dynamics work, what is really the role, understanding the role that I play with my board and the role that Peter plays with his board. So sort of understanding his position, but then understanding the role of the board and the executive committee and the fiduciary responsibilities as well, right? So the responsibilities for the continuation of the business and how is that going to work, the strategy. So I think it sort of aligns a little bit because we're both, nonprofit with very slim margins. So I understand the challenge and the importance of fundraising. So I think, really working with the executive committee to hammer out some of the challenges and how we're going to get there, having really healthy, honest debates, I think is important. Being honest with the CEO of the board you're on, with the challenges and what the expectations are. And my board's very good at that, which I appreciate. I appreciate expectations, and I want to know the honest truth, where I can improve. So I think taking those skills and working with the chamber has been very good. And I've appreciated the other board members and their perspectives and their expertise and listening to them, which is why I think it's really important to have a diverse board. And diversity can mean a million things. It can mean different socioeconomic status. It can mean different areas of expertise. It can mean likes and dislikes. It doesn't just mean, sex or race, or it can mean a million things. So I think it's important, though, to have different perspectives at the table.
I agree. And I know we have Jackie Collins and George Toma, who are also past chairs on the call today, and maybe later they'll chime in on something. But I want to pivot again. There's going to be people on this call today that are wondering, how do they get into a leadership position? And whether that be in the chamber or in their local community. What advice do you have for people wanting to take on leadership roles? Yeah,
that's a good question. I really think you have to start with getting involved and feeling comfortable and gaining your confidence that your ideas, your perspective matter. They make a difference. So if you can get involved with the chamber, even by starting out with the different networking meetings or just attending and meeting people, and then getting on the board is a great thing, because you're going to learn how to be a leader. You're going to learn more about leadership. You're going to understand and learn from your colleagues. So I think it's so important to ask questions and be authentic and honest. If you don't know something, reach out. I've reached out to so many people I've met at the chamber. I would like to get more involved in town politics because I feel like I have not done enough in terms of knowing what's really happening in my own town. I'll be honest with you, because, there's only so much time, but I feel like with the chamber, it's prompted me to want to get more involved with other organizations on the South Shore to support the fact that I feel it's really important that the businesses and I would like the price of my home to stay. I don't want my property to go down in value. So it affects you personally, not only your business, but it affects you if you're living and working on the South Shore. You want it to remain viable. So you need to get involved,
Absolutely. I know I was living in Duxbury at the time, and I got on the Open Space and Recreation Committee in Duxbury, and one of the women that had been on there for a long time, she pulled me aside one day and she said, I got you a copy of the open meeting law, and I want to walk you through what that's all about. And she took the time to train me. And then, of course, I became chair of the group, the next year. But it was someone else taking an interest to develop something she saw in me, which I would say within 5 years, I was on the board of the chamber, and then, probably 8 years after that, I was chairman of the chamber. So, putting your hand up, getting involved, and then taking the time to mentor someone when you see that spark, I think is a really big deal. Absolutely. I know we're at the point, Courtney, I think, of starting to open up questions for the group from the group. I have more questions to ask Renee, but I'm sure there's things percolating among the members here.
Great, thanks Paula, thanks Renee, and thank you also for recognizing Jackie and George, who were also past chairs of the chamber and have shown tremendous leadership. So at this time, we'll go ahead and open it up for other questions. So feel free to either use the raise your hand function or just unmute yourself, and Renee and Paula will answer some questions. Anyone want to kick us off? George?
Good morning, everybody. Again, I'm so happy to be involved. Renee,
Yes.
having coming up through the ranks as a nurse, doing the different things into the leadership role, I know I did the same thing, and I find that that helps because I can relate to what other people are going for, and hopefully they respect my opinion because they know I did what they did. Does that make a difference in your role of leadership?
I think it does. I think there is probably more trust that I have the knowledge and am competent in the business. I also think it helps when I'm talking with anybody, that donors in particular, because I do understand the business from every level. So I understand, I've been a nurse, I've worked, in the field. It definitely helps when I meet with the nursing staff. When I talk about, and I do talk about my journey, not that everybody wants to become the leader or a CEO, but that they can grow in their leadership skills as well. And I think that they respect that I understand the challenges that they have every day. And, I think it does make a difference.
Well, you're only as good as your people, and your leadership skills trickle down, and you heard it from Paula. We also used your services this year with my mother, who passed in June, and everybody we dealt with was phenomenal. And my sister, who was over the top over this whole situation, you guys made her life so easy, and we really want to thank you. So you're obviously doing something right.
Oh, well, thank you.
Knowing you were going to end up at the chamber probably wasn't in the fine print. That could have been brought up a little earlier, probably. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Thank you. I'm so glad. I'm sorry for your loss. The staff, one of my biggest commitments, and I talk about it all the time with the leadership team, and I think they all know, is always looking at the staff, the boots on the ground. So the during COVID and everything, they were still working. They were still seeing patients. They were struggling with PPE in the hot summer days when no one, the elderly don't like to have their air conditioning on. So it's a challenge. And I was, present through the whole thing, in the office, meeting them when they got their PPE and just giving them kudos for what they were doing and understanding, is there anything else we can do for you? And we started having town halls where they could all jump onto Zoom and just thanking them really, truly for their service and what they were doing. And I do think it matters that you understand, and we're very committed to quality, and the staff really appreciate that. So if they have a busy day and they have too many patients, we try to figure it out for them so they can always give the best care they can to their patients.
Anyone else have a question they'd like to ask Renee? Yeah, no, go ahead, Nicole.
Hi, Renee, it was great to hear you. I love your story, and it was really, really fascinating. You touched upon behavioral management, emotional intelligence, mentoring, and I'm just wondering if there's a book that you is a go-to book for you in terms of leadership or mentoring or any of those topics.
Yeah, there's several books. Good to Great is a book I like. The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team is a good book, because a team really has to start with trust. Mm-hmm. And, I think a leader has to also you have to have passion for what you're doing, and you have to be authentic. So I can't think off the top of my head. I'm always reading some book. in terms of leadership, there's, I get the Harvard Business Review and I pull articles from there and bring them into my team, and we sort of discuss it and hash it out and do some kind of like case studies together to figure out. It's always a challenge getting the team to row in the same direction. So I'm not saying that we're perfect in every way. It's a challenge. And so, but you as the leader, you have to, first of all, start with trust amongst the group. And that you're all going to go in the same direction once you decide on the strategic plan. So if the strategic plan is this and we all decide together as a team, then we're going to back the strategy. We're going to have its back. We're going to have each other's back and no undermining. And we look as a united front. That's probably one of the biggest challenges you have in any organization, is making that happen perfectly.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nicole. Anyone else have any questions for Renee? Anyone?
I'm going to ask Renee another question. So is there a guiding principle that you sort of rely on as a leader, maybe even as a human being?
Absolutely. So, as I said, transparency and being your authentic self are so important. And sometimes we try to be someone we think we should be because maybe this is how I should do it because that's what someone told you should do, or that's how I should do it. And it takes a while to find your authentic self. I worked really hard, I would say over the past 10 years, understanding and learning my divine guidance, whatever that means it to you. It's knowing that I'm not the only existence here and that there's a higher power that supports me. So understanding and taking the time to listen to what my journey should be and the divine guidance, because we all question ourselves. We all say, woulda, shoulda, coulda, maybe if I did this, or maybe if I did that, or maybe I should do it differently. And then I have to ground myself and go back to taking the time to listen. When I was learning to listen, I would say, so someone who was helping me learn this, how to really do this well, I don't really hear anybody saying anything to me. She's like, well, you're not really gonna hear someone saying something to you. What it is a knowing, an inner knowing, internal inner knowing. And really, truly, it works. And it's really helped guide me and ground me and help me in times of crisis to understand what I need to do. So.
Yeah, there's a definite peace that comes with having the faith to know that you're divinely guided. And I know I share that with you, that there's just a calmness that washes over you and you know that things will be okay because you're not in it alone.
Exactly. Yes. Because it is lonely at the top. You do have to sometimes, there's a group that I joined a year ago or 2 years ago, maybe, was it? Women on the South Shore, women leaders on the South Shore that wanted to get together and have a safe place to talk. And these are people that are running, like I said, billion-dollar companies to small nonprofits, and having a safe place to talk, and whatever was said there stayed there. And it's really amazing, the challenges that you're not alone. You're not alone. And it's not that you're inexperienced but helping you make good decisions and running it by someone else. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I'm in two different mastermind groups, and one meets weekly and one meets every other week, and they are invaluable to be able to have a group of people that are not judging you. They're going to give you honest feedback, and they're going to also connect you to resources that you may need. So I highly recommend people find those types of groups very important.
Agree.
Great, thank
Is
you.
there anyone else?
Okay, Paula, can I put you on the spot maybe as a
Okay.
past chair and clearly a woman leader here in the region? What are some things that you would share about kind of your leadership style and how you lead? What does leadership mean to you? And then we can kind of wrap up for the.
Sure. Okay, so leadership to me means not being afraid to step to the front of the room, not having fear of saying what might not be popular. To Renee's point about being authentic. I mean, when you know at your core that you're speaking the truth of what you believe to be the truth, it's important. It almost to be compelled to bring it up and not be afraid. It's also being afraid not to make the hard decisions. I often see, especially like in nonprofit, like in volunteer roles, people will just keep kicking the can. Let someone else deal with it. And at some point, you have to just face the elephant in the room and talk about it. And it's really hard when everyone's busy and it's not, when you're doing it for volunteer, you're not being paid. But you also have to realize you have a fiduciary responsibility. And if you're in a board of director type role, you're the legal responsible people for guiding that organization forward. And that, because in our business, we're legal fiduciaries on our behalf of our clients. That drives for me so much of how I approach things. Like, and innately, I just always try to do the right thing. I try not to take shortcuts. I try to do the right thing every day. And whether it be developing good habits and sticking with them, they just translate into who you become as a human being. And I think, habits are a core of, I think, good, solid leadership too. So that's a little bit. And I think, just put your hand up and get involved. Don't be one of those, like, you look the other way.
Mm-hmm.
The benefits and the rewards of being involved outweigh, the time commitments and maybe sometimes the bumps in the road.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I
Paula,
think,
Go ahead.
I think when you just talked about habits, Paula, I agree with you so much. I think it's so important to, especially when you're in any kind of leadership role, you have a lot on you, a lot of stress and a lot of commitments. So I think the habits that every day, it's very important. I find it very important to eat right, exercise, and sleep, or I won't be able to have the energy to do what I do.
Yeah.
So I really think it's important to have those daily habits in your life. It's a great way, it's great outlet that's healthy, to support you.
And I would add to that meditation and a
Yes.
gratitude / prayer practice
Mm-hmm.
is huge. If you start every day and end every day from a place of thank you and gratitude, your challenges don't seem so large.
Very true.
Yep.
Great. Well, thank you everyone for joining us this morning. Thank you, Renee. Thank you, Paula, for a really interesting discussion. We're very lucky to have both of you, Paula as a past chair and Renee as our current chair, in leading our organization. We're going to go ahead and wrap up, and hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week, and hope to see you again soon at one of our events. We have a really awesome new event called Kitchen Spotlight happening on the 25th, right, Heather? It'll spotlight one of our local chef owners, Brian Houlihan. Really interesting, fun way to kind of get together with a bunch of people on Zoom in a kind of more informal way and get to know some of our chef owners in the region. Restaurants have been hit pretty hard, so trying to do as much as we can to support that industry. So again, thank you so much for.
Thank you, Paula.
Thank you, Renee.
And we'll see you all again soon.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Courtney.
Bye.
Courtney.
Yes.
Oh, I just wanted to make sure my microphone wasn't working in the chat. I think it was George Thomas' fault. But you can hear me now?
I can.
All right, just testing.
All good.
Thank
Ready
you.
for next
Thank-
time.
George.
See you
Nice
guys.
seeing you,
Great to see
George.
everybody.
See
Take
you.
care. Bye-bye.
Nice to
Bye,
see
have a
you.
great day.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi.
Okay. Hey.
Shut this off.
Yeah, I think I